You know the exhaustion I speak of, though perhaps you lack words for it. After the dinner party, after the gathering, after hours of being pleasant and engaged, you return home and feel not merely tired, but displaced, watching yourself from outside, uncertain of your own opinions, unable to concentrate on work that flowed easily before. You check your calendar and realize, with something between dread and guilt, that you have another social obligation tomorrow. Everyone tells you this is normal. They say you're introverted or need to recharge. They suggest you're not trying hard enough to enjoy people. They imply that with enough practice, enough therapy, enough positive thinking, you will finally become the social being you're supposed to be. But I tell you something different. You are not defective. You are not failing at being human. You are experiencing a physiological reality that society refuses to acknowledge because acknowledging it would threaten the tyranny of sociability over superior minds. What you feel is not weakness, but intelligence protecting itself. Your exhaustion is not pathology, but warning consciousness signaling that it cannot function while fragmented by social performance. The 3-day recovery you require is not excessive, but necessary, like sleep or food or air. Stop trying to fix yourself. Start understanding your actual nature. That understanding begins here. Let me begin with an observation from my years as professor of classical philology at Basel, an observation that will disturb those who mistake sociability for virtue. After 3 hours spent among colleagues at faculty dinners, surrounded by conversation and conviviality, I required not merely rest, but something far more troubling. I needed 3 full days to remember who I was. This was no ordinary fatigue. Sleep restored my body within hours, yet my consciousness remained fragmented, scattered like papers blown across a desk by wind. I would sit in my rooms, curtains drawn against the world, attempting to reassemble the self I had distributed in pieces among my dinner companions. Each pleasantry I had performed, each thought I had edited for palatability, each mask I had maintained, all these left fragments of myself strewn across that evening like shards of broken glass. You know this sensation, though perhaps you have lacked words for it. After social gatherings, you feel not merely tired, but displaced, watching yourself from outside, uncertain of your own opinions, struggling to concentrate on work that flowed easily before. This is not introversion, that tepid modern excuse. This is something far more serious. The intelligent mind experiences social performance as a kind of violence, a forced fragmentation of a consciousness that craves unity and depth. The mediocre recover from socializing within hours because they were never truly present. They performed roles so habitual that no genuine self was ever engaged. But you, if you possess that dangerous gift called intelligence, you must actually be multiple people simultaneously. The person you are, the person others expect, the person who monitors both. This splitting exhausts not your body, but your very being. Begin tracking this pattern. After your next social obligation, observe yourself for 3 days. Notice the disorientation, the difficulty returning to deep work, the sense of being somehow emptied. This ratio, hours of performance to days of recovery, reveals your nature more honestly than any personality assessment. You are not defective for requiring solitude. You are intelligent, and intelligence has requirements that society refuses to acknowledge. The question now becomes, why does this displacement occur? What is it about social life that fragments superior consciousness while leaving the mediocre untroubled? The answer lies in a law you have never been taught. I have studied the lives of those we call genius across centuries and civilizations, and I have discovered a law as immutable as gravity. Intelligence and sociability exist in inverse proportion. The greater the mind, the more it must withdraw. The deeper the soul, the more it must protect its solitude. This is not preference, this is physiology. Schopenhauer lived alone with only his poodle Atma for company. Spinoza ground lenses in isolation, receiving visitors so rarely that his landlady thought him mad. Kant walked Königsberg streets at precisely the same hour daily, deliberately avoiding conversation. Beethoven locked himself away for months at a time, emerging only when masterworks demanded birth. These were not antisocial eccentrics. These were minds operating at their natural altitude, where the air is too thin for common constitutions. Eagles do not despise chickens from arrogance. They avoid them. From necessity, beings built for different altitudes cannot share the same space. The eagle requires mountain peaks where winds are fierce and solitude, absolute. Force it into the hen house and it will sicken and die, not from the chicken's malice, but from atmospheric unsuitability. So it is with superior minds forced into social coops. Watch carefully the people you consider truly intelligent, not the merely educated or credentialed, but those whose thoughts cut new paths through reality. How do they actually structure their lives? They guard time jealously. They decline invitations routinely. They respond to correspondence slowly, if at all. They vanish for weeks into their work. Now observe the mediocre. They cannot bear an evening alone. They fill every silence with chatter. They collect acquaintances like merchants collect coins, measuring worth by quantity of connections. Which pattern matches your natural inclination? Be honest. When you have free time, do you instinctively seek company or solitude? When interrupted during deep work, do you feel relief or violence? When invited to gatherings, do you feel obligation or dread? Your honest answers reveal your altitude requirements. But I warn you, recognizing your nature as distinct brings no comfort, only clarity. You will still be called cold, arrogant, antisocial. Society cannot conceive of eagles and insist you are merely a sick chicken. The question is whether you will believe them or believe your own experience. Now we must perform surgery on that guilt you feel about preferring solitude. Like all moral judgments, this guilt serves someone's interests, and I assure you it does not serve yours or humanity's. I knew a young scholar of genuine promise who spent 7 years unable to complete his dissertation. Not from lack of ability his fragment showed brilliance, but because his mother insisted he was too isolated. His colleagues suggested he put himself out there more. His friends called him selfish for declining invitations. So he attended every social function, maintained every friendship, performed every obligation society demanded. His consciousness, which required long, uninterrupted hours to develop complex arguments, was shattered into fragments too small for genuine thoughts. After 7 years of this torture, exhausted and desperate, he made a choice: isolation or destruction. He chose isolation. His work flowered within 3 months. When you feel guilty about desiring solitude, ask yourself this genealogical question: who benefits if I change? Not humanity. Humanity needs your completed work far more than your presence at dinner parties. Not genuine friends, real friends understand your need for withdrawal. Who benefits? Those who want your time, attention, and validation without offering value in return. Those who use guilt as a tool to colonize your consciousness for their purposes. The mediocre elevate sociability to moral imperative because it's their only competitive advantage. They cannot match you in depth of thought, quality of work, or originality of insight, but they have numbers. By making gregariousness a virtue, they create a system where their strength, availability, pleasantness, constant presence becomes currency. They demand you descend to their altitude and call it maturity. Mothers, pastors, teachers install this guilt during your childhood, not from malice, but from their own herd nature. They genuinely believed they were helping you fit in and be normal. They could not conceive that some natures required different conditions, that what they called health was for you a form of sickness. But you are not a child anymore. You need not carry guilt implanted by those who did not understand your nature. Next time guilt rises when you decline an invitation or crave solitude, pause. Trace the guilt to its origin. Whose voice speaks through that guilt? Usually, people long dead or people whose judgment you don't respect. Once you see the mechanism clearly, Once you understand that this guilt serves others' interests rather than your development, its power collapses like a house of cards in wind. Here I must tell you something your teachers never mentioned. True intelligence is fundamentally antisocial, not in the sense of hating people, but in the sense of being structurally incompatible with what social life demands. Intelligence is the capacity to think thoughts no one else thinks, to see what others cannot see, to value what others despise, to question what others assume. But sociability demands the precise opposite: conformity to shared assumptions, allegiance to common beliefs, restriction to mutually comprehensible vocabulary, agreement on invisible premises that structure every conversation. These requirements directly oppose intelligence's functioning. During my Basel years, I would sit at faculty dinners watching myself perform a peculiar kind of violence. A genuine thought would arise, something complex, uncomfortable, requiring extensive development. Before speaking, I would translate it into acceptable form, stripping away everything that might disturb or require explanation. What emerged was so pale, so domesticated, so different from the original thought that I eventually stopped speaking anything real at all. My colleagues thought me charming but shallow. I experienced this as consciousness forced to fragment itself for others' comfort. The more intelligent you are, the wider the gap between your inner reality and any possible social expression of it. Your actual thoughts exist in territories unmapped by common language. Your questions concern premises others don't notice themselves assuming. Your perceptions include dimensions others cannot access. How do you express this in casual conversation? You don't. You translate, simplify, domesticate, or you remain silent. This exhausts you not because interaction itself is tiring, but because translation is labor. Imagine spending every conversation translating between languages your native tongue and the only tongue others speak. Hours of this, and you're depleted, not from talking, but from the constant work of making yourself comprehensible to those who lack your conceptual vocabulary. Watch yourself in your next conversation. Notice how you edit thoughts before speaking. Notice ideas you don't voice because they'd require too much explanation. Notice how you adjust vocabulary, simplify complexity, omit nuance. This isn't politeness, this is the price of social participation. You've been paying it your entire life without realizing the cost. Alone in your rooms afterward, you finally think in your native language again. No translation required, no editing for palatability, no simplification for comprehension. This is not mere relief, this is return to yourself, return to the only place your consciousness can operate at full capacity. Ideas are not flashes of insight that arrive complete and perfect like lightning from heaven. This is the myth sold to those who have never generated a genuine thought. Real ideas grow like plants, slowly, organically, requiring specific conditions and extended time. My concept of eternal recurrence gestated for months before crystallizing that August day at Sils Maria near the pyramidal rock by Lake Silvaplana. Daily walks, hours of silent contemplation, following thought chains wherever they led without interruption, this was the soil from which the idea grew. Had I been socially obligated during that period, attending dinners and maintaining friendships and responding promptly to correspondence, the idea would have died before germination. Breakthrough requires not just time, but uninterrupted time. Fragmented time produces only fragmented thoughts. Consider how an idea actually develops. You hold a question or problem in consciousness. Gradually, over hours or days, connections begin forming between this observation and that memory, between this principle and that example. The structure builds invisibly, like roots spreading underground. Then more connections, deeper patterns, implications, branching in unexpected directions. The process is delicate, requiring sustained attention. A single interruption, a knock at the door, an obligation remembered, a social demand, and the entire structure collapses. You must begin again from the beginning, rebuilding what the interruption destroyed. This is why social obligations feel like violence to the intelligent mind. Every invitation is not merely an hour taken from your day, but days taken from your work. The day itself plus the days required to reconstruct whatever thought structure the interruption demolished. A 3-hour dinner party can cost you a week of genuine cognitive progress. Examine your calendar honestly. How many uninterrupted blocks of 4 or more hours do you possess weekly? For most, none. Every day is fragmented into meetings, obligations, interruptions. Now understand something terrible. This fragmentation makes genuine thought not merely difficult, but impossible. Not harder, impossible. Breakthrough understanding requires uninterrupted chains of reasoning that fragmented time cannot accommodate. Begin protecting 1 4-hour block weekly. Let nothing interrupt it. No phone, no visitors, no obligations. Use it only for following thought chains. Bring a problem into that protected time and simply hold it in consciousness, following wherever it leads. Within weeks, you'll notice the difference between scattered thinking and genuine contemplation. You'll understand why every great work in history emerged from extended periods of protected solitude. You'll recognize that what you've been calling thinking in your fragmented days has been merely mental activity, not genuine thought. Let me reveal why the mediocre cannot bear solitude while you perhaps crave it. They possess nothing within themselves. Their consciousness is an empty room requiring furniture from outside. Your consciousness is a fully appointed palace. I once asked a gregarious colleague what occupied his thoughts during long train journeys. He looked puzzled by the question. Nothing particular. I read newspapers, watch scenery, hope someone will talk. I think constantly during travel, following arguments, constructing passages, solving problems, entertaining myself with ideas the way others entertain themselves with companions. His consciousness was a vacant hall echoing with boredom. Mine was a theater, with performances perpetually playing. The intelligent possess what I call inner abundance, entire worlds within consciousness. They carry libraries of thoughts, galleries of images, laboratories where experiments run continuously. Alone, they are never bored because their minds generate constant interest. They can spend hours following a single thought chain with the fascination others require company to achieve. They are banquets at which they sit as both host and guest, conversations in which they play all parts, dramas in which they are simultaneously playwright, actor, and audience. The mediocre possess only themselves, which is very little. They experience their own consciousness as emptiness requiring constant filling from external sources. They flee solitude because silence reveals their internal poverty. They need others, not from warmth or love, but from desperate necessity. Without external stimulation, they face the void within themselves. This explains everything about differential attitudes toward solitude. The mediocre say, I need people, and mean it literally. They need others to fill consciousness that generates nothing internally. The intelligent say, I prefer solitude, and mean something different. They prefer conditions that allow internal abundance to flourish without constant interruption. Test yourself honestly. Spend one day in complete solitude with no external input, no books, no newspapers, no work, only consciousness and time. Observe what emerges. If hours pass easily with interesting thoughts, pleasant contemplations, engaging internal dialogues, you possess inner abundance. If desperation sets in, if you're checking clocks and fighting panic, if time crawls with excruciating slowness, you possess inner poverty. Neither condition is moral judgment, but they require different external conditions. One nature needs solitude as plants need sun. The other needs company as parasites need hosts. Know which you are, and stop judging yourself by standards designed for different natures. The mediocre call you antisocial because they cannot conceive of internal abundance they've never experienced. They project their need onto your different nature and call your health their sickness. Now comes the dangerous teaching, the one where most will retreat. Becoming yourself requires killing who you've been performing. Not metaphorically, these are actual deaths that must be died consciously or they will be died unconsciously. And unconscious death is merely decades of slow suffocation. My break with Wagner exemplified all 5 deaths simultaneously. I killed my need for his approval, that desperate craving for the great man's validation that had kept me circling his orbit like a satellite. I killed my guilt about abandoning our friendship. That voice insisting loyalty demanded I sacrifice truth to comfort. I killed the false elements of our relationship, the convenient fictions we had both maintained about our alignment. I killed the version of myself I performed in his presence, that eager disciple who suppressed doubts to preserve harmony. And I killed my fear of the isolation that would follow, the terror that without Wagner I would be utterly alone. The break was agony. For months afterward I questioned whether I had destroyed something precious, whether solitude was worth such loss. But gradually I recognized the truth. I had killed nothing genuine. I had only allowed already dead things to decompose naturally. The relationship had been corpse. For years I was merely acknowledging its death rather than continuing to prop up the body and insist it still breathed. These are the 5 deaths every superior individual must die. Death of approval addiction, death of installed guilt, death of false friendships, death of performed self, and death of loneliness, fear. Each is necessary. None is optional. The only question is whether you will die them consciously, with understanding, or spend decades in slow, unconscious dying. Begin with the smallest death. Decline one invitation this week without elaborate excuse. Simply, I won't be able to attend. Notice the discomfort that rises, the urge to over-explain, the guilt about disappointing others, the fear of their judgment. Sit with these sensations. Don't soothe them. Let them be uncomfortable. This teaches you something crucial. You can survive others' disappointment. You are stronger than you believed. The threatened punishment, their displeasure arrives, and you endure it. Even thrive in it. Then progress to larger deaths. Express one genuine unpopular opinion without editing for palatability. Let one friendship that exhausts you die naturally by simply ceasing to maintain it. Stop performing the version of yourself designed to please others and begin expressing actual thoughts. Each death becomes easier as you discover your resilience, as you learn that what society threatened as punishment is actually liberation. But I warn you, these deaths are painful precisely because they're real. You will lose relationships. You will be judged harshly. You will face periods of isolation that test your commitment. Most retreat here, deciding comfort is worth the slow suffocation of remaining perpetually half alive. Only the strong continue. Only those who value truth over belonging. Only those willing to become who they are rather than what others demand. Do not revolutionize your life based on my words or anyone's theory. Test your nature through deliberate experiments. Let evidence guide commitment, not ideology. Before resigning my Basel professorship, I took leave for health reasons. Those mysterious headaches and stomach ailments that plagued me throughout my productive years. The months away from social obligation were revelation. I produced more genuine work in 6 months of isolation than 6 years of professorial duties. This was not theory, this was data. The experiment proved definitively that my nature required solitude the way plants require sun. Had I not conducted this experiment, I might have convinced myself that society's claims about needing community were true, that my discomfort with social life indicated pathology requiring correction. The experiment destroyed that delusion with empirical evidence. Design your own experiments this week. Start small. Take one weekend in complete solitude with no social contact or obligations. Observe what you feel, anxiety or relief, boredom or engagement, exhaustion or energy. The honest answer reveals your nature more accurately than any theory. Express one genuinely unpopular opinion in conversation and observe both others' reactions and your internal experience. Does it feel liberating or merely uncomfortable? Decline one invitation without elaborate excuse, and notice what dominates guilt or relief. Delay responding to one letter and observe your sensations. The key is interpreting results honestly rather than through conditioning's filter. You may feel guilt initially, even during right actions, because guilt was installed early and deeply. But notice beneath the guilt, is there also relief, liberation, a sense of returning to yourself? If relief underlies the guilt, that's data suggesting your nature requires solitude. If genuine loneliness dominates not conditioned guilt but actual need for connection, that's different data. Build evidence before commitment. Run multiple experiments over weeks. Let patterns emerge. If experiments consistently reveal relief in solitude and exhaustion in company, you have your answer. If they reveal the opposite, honor that data. Perhaps you genuinely need more social connection than you currently have. There's no shame in either result. The shame is in living according to theory rather than evidence, in remaining trapped by either social conditioning or intellectual ideology rather than following your actual observed nature. Transformation should be empirical, not ideological. Test, observe, interpret honestly, adjust, test again. This method protects you from both slavish conformity to social pressure and rebellious avoidance rooted in trauma rather than nature. Let results guide you. Trust evidence over opinion, observation over theory, your own experience over others' projections. Now I must tell you what awaits in the solitude you're creating, what emerges when you finally remove the static of social noise. It is not emptiness, but power, actual power, not compensatory fantasy. My months at Sils Maria, after leaving Basel, revealed what years of professorial sociability had obscured. Problems that had troubled me for years suddenly resolved themselves, not because I became more intelligent, but because I removed interference. Social life had been noise, drowning out signal. In silence, the signal emerged crystalline clear. The difference was staggering, like spending years listening to symphony through poor telephone connection, hearing only fragments and distortion, then suddenly hearing the orchestra directly. All the complexity, all the subtlety, all the dimensions that static had obscured. I had not known how stupid social life was making me until I experienced consciousness operating without its constant interference. Alone, freed from the requirement to maintain masks and monitor others' reactions, your thoughts sharpen. You can hold multiple contradictory ideas simultaneously without needing to resolve them prematurely for others' comfort. You can follow thought chains into dangerous territories without someone demanding you return to safety. You can question premises everyone else assumes without facing resistance that forces you to defend rather than explore. Problems you've struggled with for months suddenly yield solutions, not through dramatic epiphany, but through the simple capacity to hold them in sustained attention without interruption. Multiple minds create confusion, not clarity, everyone pulling different directions, each person's questions disrupting everyone else's thought chains. Alone, consciousness can finally operate at full capacity. This is what I call the solitude of power. Not compensatory power, not the fantasy that isolation makes up for social failure, but actual power. Consciousness operating at optimal capacity rather than diminished social capacity. You discover your mind's actual horsepower when it's no longer pulling the weight of constant social performance. Bring a problem you've struggled with into protected solitude. Don't force solution, simply hold it in consciousness while walking, sitting, thinking. Notice how insights emerge naturally when interference stops. Compare this to group brainstorming sessions or social discussions of the same problem. Recognize how multiple voices create cacophony, preventing insight. You need no theoretical convincing once you've experienced this difference directly. 1 week of genuine solitude reveals what years of theory cannot teach. The power is real. The difference is measurable. Your work improves, your thoughts deepen, your consciousness expands. You feel yourself operating at full capacity for perhaps the first time in your life. And once you've tasted this, once you've experienced your mind functioning without constant interference, You will defend solitude with ferocity that others cannot understand. You will seem unreasonable, rigid, even cold in your protection of isolation. But you know what they don't. You've discovered the conditions under which your actual gifts can flourish. I write from 5 until noon each day, not from superhuman discipline, but from understanding a simple truth. Those morning hours are mine alone. No one knocks, no obligations intrude. Consciousness is fresh from sleep's restoration. These hours determine not just my day's quality, but my life's quality. During my Basel years, I tried writing after teaching and social duties. Impossible. By afternoon, consciousness was fragmented, will was depleted, the well was dry. I could read, correspond, perform administrative tasks, but genuine creative work, the capacity was gone, not from hours used, but from consciousness already divided into service of others' demands. Morning writing saved my work. More precisely, protecting morning hours from social intrusion enabled any work to happen at all. The lesson is universal. The first 3 to 4 hours after waking are golden for those capable of genuine thought. Consciousness is fresh, will is strong. The world has not yet made its demands. Spend these hours on others' agendas, and you've sacrificed your best thinking to trivial necessities. But here is the crucial point. The intelligent rise early, not from discipline, but from eagerness to meet themselves before meeting the world. They wake with ideas demanding attention, problems requiring continued exploration, work calling more compellingly than any social obligation. Their alarm is not dreaded interrupt, but permission to return to what matters. Eliminate morning decisions through evening preparation. Can't walk the same route at the same time daily, not from obsessive rigidity, but from wisdom. Why waste mental energy on route variations? Every trivial choice is energy unavailable for genuine thought. Automate the routine, save the mind for what matters. Consume no input before creating output. Your morning consciousness is too precious to fill with others' thoughts before generating your own. No newspapers, no correspondence, no others' demands. Let your first hours belong to your work, your problems, your creative production. Others' agenda can wait. They've survived centuries without your immediate response. They'll survive another few hours. Tomorrow, wake 1 hour earlier than usual. Immediately before checking messages or news or obligations, spend that hour on your most important work. Notice the quality of thought versus afternoon attempts. Then progressively move more important work into morning hours. Defend them fiercely. Schedule nothing social before noon if possible. Let the world wait. Your morning consciousness is not infinite resource to be distributed freely. It is rare gift to be stewarded carefully. Society will call you rigid, antisocial, selfish for this protection. Let them. They do not understand that what you protect is not preference, but the very conditions that enable anything valuable to emerge from your consciousness. After all your withdrawals, after all the deaths you've died, 1 or 2 relationships will survive. These alone are genuine. Everything else was social theater. Paul Daleson and I see each other rarely. Sometimes years pass between meetings. Yet when we meet, conversation continues exactly where we left off, as though no time had elapsed. No maintenance required. No obligatory updates about trivial events. No performative enthusiasm about meaningless developments. We simply resume the only conversation that matters, the one we've been having across decades about questions that actually interest us. This is friendship. Deep alignment that survives neglect. Connection built on shared direction rather than habit or convenience. Everything else masquerading as friendship is merely social arrangement, mutual use, collaborative delusion that proximity equals intimacy. The test of genuine friendship is simple. Does it require constant maintenance? False friendships collapse without regular attention. Phone calls, dinners, careful management of others' emotions. They exist only through your labor. Stop maintaining them and they dissolve naturally, proving they were never real. True friendships survive years of silence because they're built on something deeper than habit. Another test. Do they respect your need for solitude? False friends take withdrawal personally, guilt you about neglecting them, demand you justify your absence. True friends understand that your solitude enables your work, that your withdrawal is not rejection but necessity. They don't merely tolerate your nature, they honor it. Examine your relationships honestly, which require exhausting effort to maintain, which survive months of no contact, which understand when you say, I need solitude, versus which respond with hurt or anger. Stop maintaining the high-maintenance ones. Simply stop. Let them fade naturally. Watch who remains. Those few who persist without maintenance, who respect your withdrawals, who meet rarely but deeply, those are your actual friends. You may have one or two in a lifetime, perhaps none. Quality supersedes quantity absolutely. One genuine friendship provides more than 20 false ones ever could, not because genuine friends are more pleasant, but because they require no mask-wearing, no translation, no constant adjustment to accommodate their limitations. This means most people who currently call themselves your friends will vanish from your life. Society will interpret this as coldness. You will be accused of abandoning people. Let them accuse. You are not abandoning friends. You are simply ceasing to pretend that acquaintances are friends, that pleasant companions are deep connections, that people who'd forget you within months if you stopped initiating contact ever genuinely cared. The relief that comes from this honesty is profound. You stop exhausting yourself, maintaining relationships that serve no purpose beyond avoiding the guilt of ending them. You discover that solitude with occasional genuine connection satisfies more deeply than constant shallow sociability ever did. You cannot eliminate all social interaction, work, family, necessary functions require some participation. The advanced skill is learning to be present without being displaced, to participate without losing yourself. I learned this at Basel. I could attend faculty gatherings, converse pleasantly, fulfill obligations, while simultaneously maintaining part of consciousness as observer. Like an actor who inhabits character while remaining aware of audience, I performed social participation while protecting my essential self. Part of consciousness engaged socially. Part remained watching, thinking, separate. This dual consciousness prevents complete displacement. You attend the dinner party, but you're not consumed by it. You make pleasantries, but you're not identical with the person making them. You fulfill obligations, but you're not exhausted afterward because you never gave. Everything only what the situation required, keeping the rest protected. Learn to calibrate energy expenditure based on interaction's value. Some conversations deserve full engagement. Rare individuals who actually interest you, genuine questions that stimulate thought. Most warrant only cordial surface participation. The difference is knowing which is which and not wasting full presence on shallow encounters. Recognize your displacement limit and extract yourself before crossing it. You'll feel it coming, the fragmentation starting, consciousness beginning to scatter, fatigue setting in, not from tiredness but from splitting. Leave then. Don't push through to complete exhaustion. Make excuse and extract yourself while you can still return to yourself quickly. This preservation of center minimizes recovery time needed afterward. During your next unavoidable social event, practice observer position. Notice yourself conversing. Notice the mask you're wearing. Notice what you're editing. You're both participant and witness. When displacement begins, when you feel yourself losing touch with your actual thoughts, extract yourself. Don't stay from politeness until consciousness is completely scattered. This is not coldness, it's intelligence. You provide what the situation requires while protecting what matters most. The socially graceful learn this naturally. The intelligent must learn it deliberately. But once mastered, it allows you to navigate necessary social terrain without complete exhaustion. The technique is subtle. You appear fully present to others while maintaining internal separation. You're cordial, responsive, appropriately engaged, but you're performing this consciously, not reflexively. You know you're wearing a mask and why. You know when to remove it. You maintain yourself even while apparently surrendering to social demands. This saves enormous energy. You fulfill obligations without being destroyed by them. You can attend necessary functions without spending 3 days recovering. You discover you can be socially adequate while remaining internally intact. This is freedom not from social life entirely, but from social life's tyranny over your consciousness. Let me reveal a pattern that repeats across all of history with such consistency that only willful blindness could deny it. Every significant advance in human consciousness occurred in solitude, not most every single one. Buddha sat alone beneath the Bodhi tree for 49 days before enlightenment. Christ spent 40 days in wilderness before beginning his ministry. Muhammad retreated to cave Hira for solitary contemplation when revelations came. Spinoza ground lenses in isolation while writing ethics. Newton's Principia emerged during plague years when he retreated to Woolsthorpe Manor. Einstein worked alone in patent office when he revolutionized physics. My own Zarathustra came entirely from months of mountain solitude. This is not coincidence. This is necessity. Breakthrough requires stepping outside humanity's current understanding, and one cannot step outside while embedded within. Social life embodies our accumulated beliefs, our inherited assumptions, our collective consensus about reality. To transcend these requires physical and psychological distance from their constant reinforcement. Why? Because every conversation is reiteration of established patterns. Every social interaction occurs within invisible boundaries of acceptable thought. Every gathering enforces current consensus through subtle and not so subtle pressures. The genius must break these chains, must think thoughts that have never been thought, must see what no one has seen. This is impossible while holding hands with others, while embedded in the social matrix that embodies precisely what must be transcended. You cannot leap beyond humanity while remaining within humanity's embrace. The leap requires solitude, not as preference, but as precondition, not as personality quirk, but as structural necessity of consciousness. Attempting to exceed its current boundaries, study any breakthrough you respect, trace back to its origins. You will find, always, extended periods of isolation, the thinker withdrawing from society, protecting fragile insights from premature exposure, following thought chains into territories where no one else has traveled. The breakthrough emerges not despite isolation, but because of it. When you withdraw to protect time for your work, when you decline social obligations to maintain thinking space, when you guard solitude as jealously as miser guards gold, you are not being antisocial. You are positioning yourself at humanity's edge, where breakthroughs become possible, where consciousness can exceed its current limits. Most never attempt this. They remain safely embedded in social consensus, producing nothing original because originality requires distance they refuse to achieve. They call you cold for seeking what they lack courage to pursue. They accuse you of arrogance for attempting what they're too frightened to try. Let them. You serve something larger than their comfort. Your solitude is not selfishness, but positioning, not avoidance, but preparation, not antisocial pathology, but precondition for the only kind of contribution that actually advances human understanding. The question is not whether you need solitude, but whether you have courage to use it for something beyond mere comfort. Here is a truth that will offend comfortable assumptions. Society can have the genius's company at dinner parties or the genius's contributions to civilization. Never both. Time is finite. Consciousness is finite. Hours spent socializing are hours not spent creating. The choice is binary and absolute. Imagine Beethoven well-adjusted and social, attending every invitation, maintaining friendships, making himself pleasant at gatherings. Calculate honestly how many hours per week this would have required. 20? 30? Now remove those hours from his composition time over his productive decades. Which works wouldn't exist? The late quartets? The Ninth Symphony? Perhaps the entire mature output that justifies his existence and benefits humanity to this day? The choice is not theoretical, it's mathematical. Society gained cordial company or gained transformative art. It could not have both. Same applies to every creative intelligence throughout history. Schopenhauer could have been sociable friend or author of The World as Will and Representation, not both. I could have remained popular Basel professor or written Zarathustra, not both. This applies to you. What do you uniquely offer that might benefit future generations? Your pleasant presence at social gatherings or your completed work? Which matters more in a century? Be ruthlessly honest. Most people's company is worth nothing beyond immediate pleasantness. No one remembers, no one benefits, nothing endures. But genuine work insights, creations, ideas that advance understanding, this serves people you'll never meet, times you'll never see. When others pressure you to be more social, force them to acknowledge the choice they're demanding. Would you prefer I attend your party or complete work that might matter? Make it explicit. Make them say it. Yes, I prefer you sacrifice potential contribution for my evening's entertainment. Few will say this honestly. Most will retreat into vague claims that you can do both. You cannot. No one can. The genius who tries serves neither society nor humanity, produces mediocre work and exhausted presence. Next time guilt rises about declining social obligations, calculate honestly. These 3 hours could produce X. Is the obligation worth sacrificing X? Usually the answer is no. When it's yes, genuine friend in crisis, legitimate family need attend without guilt. But recognize that 90% of social pressure concerns trivial obligations that benefit no one, while stealing time from work that might benefit many. You are not being selfish. You are choosing between serving present company's desire for entertainment and serving future humanity's need for advancement. Between spending time on what makes you liked and spending time on what makes you useful. Between comfortable mediocrity and uncomfortable excellence. Society will judge you harshly for this choice. Let them. Their judgment lasts as long as their memory, usually weeks at most. Your work, if genuine, might matter for centuries. Choose accordingly. Now we arrive at the deepest truth, the one that transforms solitude from preference into sacred duty. Your withdrawal is not abandonment, but service. Not selfishness, but sacrifice. Not cold isolation, but highest form of care. Why do I endure years of isolation, poverty, illness, incomprehension? Not from hatred of humanity, but from love of something humanity might become. I am physician to a humanity that doesn't yet exist, treating ailments the current age doesn't recognize as ailments. I work in solitude because the work requires distance, clear vision is impossible while embedded in the patient, diagnosis demands perspective that proximity prevents. Every physician sometimes must cut to heal, must refuse sympathy to provide cure, must hurt temporarily to benefit permanently. Your refusal to validate comfortable lies serves the same function. When you decline to participate in collective delusions, when you insist on truth over comfort, when you maintain solitude as space where honest vision can emerge, you serve humanity more profoundly than the most ardent socializer. But I will not deceive you. This is burden, not privilege. Every age persecutes its genuinely intelligent. They refuse to participate properly, ask uncomfortable questions, see through cherished illusions, will not applaud mediocrity. Society tolerates this poorly. You will be called cold, arrogant, inhumane. These accusations are marks of authentic vision, not character flaws. The comfortable will always attack those who disturb their comfort, regardless of whether the disturbance is necessary for their growth. Accept this as cost of the work. The physician is not loved during treatment, patient resents the knife, curses the bitter medicine, flees the painful therapy. Only later, when healed, does gratitude emerge. You serve people who don't yet exist more than people currently surrounding you. This requires faith, faith that truth matters, that clarity serves, that honest vision benefits even those who currently resist it. When accused of being antisocial for prioritizing solitude, respond clearly. I'm not serving you. I'm serving work that might matter to people I'll never meet. You want my company now. They might need my contributions later. I choose them. This is not arrogance. It's honest assessment of where your actual value lies. Not everyone serves through presence. Some serve through absence, through withdrawal that enables the distance required for genuine vision. Know which you are and honor that function without apology or shame. The physician of culture accepts burden of misunderstanding because the work matters more than being liked. You stand now at the end of this teaching with choice before you. Will you join the herd or climb alone to peaks? Will you die comfortable and forgotten, or live dangerous and perhaps eternal? Will you serve present company's desire for your participation or future humanity's need for your contribution? The choice has always been yours. I have merely stripped away the lies that concealed it. Now live it. Become what you are. Accept the burden. Serve through withdrawal. And let the comfortable call you what they will, their judgment dies with them. But your work, if genuine, might echo across centuries. The journey completes where it began, but you return transformed. You know who you are. You know what you serve. You know why you stand alone. Now live accordingly, without apology, without shame, without compromise.